I do think that it matters how you build the AI and what kind of values you instill
How
in
likely
the
is
AI.
America to win the race for AI vis-a-vis China or anyone else?
For the next few years, I think America is likely to
Judge is now weighing a controversial lawsuit pitting free speech.
All right, buckle up because this is one of those stories that sounds like it should not be real, and yet here we are. The United States Department of Justice, the same institution that prosecutes federal crimes and defends the Constitution, has just stepped into a courtroom fight to back Elon Musk. Not against him, for him. And the reason why is about to make your jaw hit the floor, because this entire legal battle centers around artificial intelligence, explicit images, and a law that Minnesota passed to stop something deeply disturbing. Stick around because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why the federal government just picked a side in one of the most uncomfortable tech lawsuits of the year. Quick favor before we dive in. If you are enjoying this channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell while you're at it. Over 92% of you watching right now have not subscribed yet, and that is honestly wild, considering how deep we go on these stories. It costs nothing, takes 1 second, and it genuinely helps this channel grow. Thank you if you did. Now, let us get into the chaos. So here's the setup. Minnesota, being the proactive state that it is, passed a law aimed squarely at a very specific and very unsettling problem: artificial intelligence tools that can take a photo of a real person and generate a fake explicit image of them without their consent. Lawmakers call this nudifying, and if that word makes you uncomfortable, good, because it should. The law makes it illegal for websites, apps, and software platforms to allow users to create these images or to generate them on a user's behalf. And Minnesota is not playing around with the penalties either. Violations can cost a company up to $500,000 per offense. That is not a slap on the wrist. That is the kind of fine that makes general counsel break out in a cold sweat. Now, let's talk about how the law actually defines this, because the wording matters a lot here, and it's about to become the entire battlefield for this lawsuit. Under Minnesota's statute, nudifying means altering or generating an image or video to show an intimate body part that was not visible in the original picture. And the fake has to be realistic enough that an average person could actually believe it belongs to that real individual. Think of it like a counterfeit painting. If you slap a fake signature on a canvas and it's obviously a bad copy, nobody's fooled and nobody gets hurt. But if the forgery is convincing enough to pass as the real thing in a gallery, that's where the damage happens. Minnesota is essentially saying, if your AI tool can produce a forgery convincing enough to fool people and it involves someone's body without their consent, that's a problem the law needs to stop. So where does Elon Musk fit into all of this? Well, this is where the plot thickens considerably. Musk's AI company, xAI, filed a lawsuit against the state of Minnesota last month, arguing that the law violates the First Amendment. Yes, the same First Amendment that protects your right to free speech is now being used as a legal shield in a fight over AI-generated explicit content. xAI's argument is that the law is written so broadly that it could punish the company for entirely legal and even harmless activity, not just the disturbing stuff the law was designed to stop. Here is where it gets genuinely fascinating, because xAI's attorney, a man named Robert Dunn, made an argument that honestly sounds like something out of a law school exam question. He claimed the legislation could punish xAI even in cases where a user generates an image of themselves. Think about that for a second. If you take a photo of yourself and use an AI tool to alter it, even privately, even with zero intent to harm anyone else, Dunn argues the current wording of this law could still expose the company to liability. That is the kind of legal loophole that either sounds like a reasonable free speech concern or a very convenient excuse, depending entirely on who you ask. And Minnesota certainly is not buying it. And that brings us to the other side of this fight, because Minnesota is not backing down 1 inch. State officials have pushed back hard against xAI's arguments, insisting that the company is still responsible for stopping prohibited content from being generated on its platform, regardless of how the technical wording plays out in court. Minnesota Assistant Attorney General Janine Kimball put it plainly, pointing out that XAI loves to point to its own terms of service, the fine print nobody reads, as proof that this content is banned. But here's the problem. The state says it continues to see a large number of users generating exactly these kinds of prohibited images anyway. In other words, having a rule on paper means very little if it is not actually being enforced in practice. That's like a nightclub bragging about its strict no fighting policy while somebody is getting knocked out in the parking lot every single weekend. Now, this lawsuit did not just appear out of thin air, and this is honestly the part of the story that makes everything click into place. This entire legal fight is happening against the backdrop of serious controversy surrounding Grok, which is XAI's chatbot that's built directly into the platform X. Grok has faced heavy criticism because of its ability to generate sexually explicit deepfake images, including non-consensual images of actual real people. This is not some hypothetical fear lawmakers dreamed up. This is a documented problem that has already been happening, and Musk himself has publicly acknowledged issues with the chatbot safeguards, attributing at least some of these incidents to what he called lapses in safeguards. So when a company's own founder is admitting there were gaps in the system, and then that same company turns around and sues a state for trying to close those gaps, you can understand why Minnesota is not exactly feeling sympathetic.